Hello, Mr. Munger and Mr. Buffett. Nirav Patel from Haverhill, Massachusetts. What advice would you give to someone who's trying to network with influential people but doesn't have access to the alumni network of a top business school?
Let me take that one. I think you should do the best you can. Playing the hand you've got.
Charlie's very Old Testament on this. Didn't get much past Genesis. If it was his question that he didn't have a lot of associations because
Well, he'd like to have you help him
tap into.
do well without business school training. I never had any business school training. Why should you have any?
Yeah. And actually, I would say the business school training, particularly in investments, was a handicap about 20 years ago when they were preaching efficient market theory, because essentially they told you it didn't do any good to try and figure out what a company was worth because the market had it priced perfectly already. Now, imagine paying $30,000 or $40,000 a year to hear that.
Yes. You were very lucky to avoid a lot that you've avoided.
How do you feel about your law school training, Charlie, while we're on it?
Well, I have a son-in-law who recently explained how modern profit-obsessed law firms work. He says it's like a pie-eating contest, and if you win, you get to eat a lot more pie.
Okay, Becky, you're on.
This question is a follow-up to the one that Jonathan Brandt just asked. It's an appropriate follow-up for that, though. It comes from Mark Blakely in Tulsa, Oklahoma, who says that one risk to Berkshire and BNSF appears to be a large railroad accident. It appears many recent accidents have occurred in rural areas. However, how would a worst-case scenario, perhaps one in a more urban area or a BP-type accident, impact BNSF and Berkshire Hathaway? And is the company insured or protected against such losses?
Our insurance, reinsurance unit actually went to the 4 major railroads offering very high limits. I think this is from memory, I could be off on this somewhat, but I think we offered something like $5 or $6 billion excess of maybe $1.5 billion or something like that the railroad retained. So there's no question about it. If you had the exact wrong circumstances, a train with a lot of ammonia or chlorine or something, right in some terrible urban area, the possibility always exists that can happen. It can happen. You can have plane crashes. There are things that are very small probabilities, but if we run trains millions and millions of miles, year after year, something will happen, just like they happen in every other possible accident way. And so you minimize it. You run trains slower in urban areas. They've already instituted that with crude. I think they brought it down to 35 miles an hour in towns of 100,000. That's the maximum. So that you're always working to be safer. You'll never be perfectly safe. We do not. We have some insurance at Burlington Northern, but we don't need insurance at Berkshire. We've got the capability to take any loss that comes along. So we actually would be more likely to be offering that insurance, and we did offer that insurance, and the railroad industry didn't like our rates, which is understandable, and so they haven't bought it, but that doesn't mean they won't at some time in the future. I should add one thing I forgot to say to Jonathan. I don't think we will be buying the 5,000 rail cars. I think I don't know that for sure, but there's going to be a lot going on in terms of retrofitting. Our Marmon operation has actually taken on a new facility that will be working very hard. Once we know what the retrofit requires, we will be, I'm sure, working 3 shifts on retrofitting cars, Probably our own, probably some other people's, will be building new cars. The industry has been waiting to see what the requirements would be before moving ahead. The first quarter of 2015, there were practically no tank cars ordered. There's a backlog, but there's no tank cars that were ordered because we need to see what the regulations are. But we'll be very active in retrofitting and in manufacturing new cars. But I don't think we'll be. Historically, the railroads have never really owned tank cars. That goes back to the Rockefeller days. And I think the present method of having car lessors, such as the one we own, I think will continue in the future rather than having the railroads own them.
Mr. Buffett, you have expressed your optimism about the future of America many times and have often made the point that the U.S. simply has a superior economic system. But my question, and this is from Christopher Gaccio of New York City, my question concerns the risk of chemical, nuclear, biological, and cybersecurity problems, and the audience should reflect on the initial letters of those words when I tell you that Mr. Buffett has sometimes dubbed that CNBC. Sorry, Becky.
Well, I just do that to tease people, but
Now, wait a minute. One more. How do these threats affect your outlook?
well, they are the great threat to the United States. We have and will have a wonderful economic system. Your children are going to live better than you do, and your grandchildren are going to live better than they do. And that is there are fits and starts and ups and downs, but just go outside, or as you fly home, just imagine what your flying over looked like in 1776, and everything since then is profit. I mean, the farms are incredibly more productive, the cities have grown. It's all here, and that's all come from unleashing the energies and brains of the American people and the system that has worked quite well despite all the deficiencies that we talk about all the time. So that hasn't been lost at all. And people get upset because we're having 2% growth. Well, 2% growth with 1% population growth means 20% gain in a generation. And 20% on 54,000 of GDP per capita is another 10,000 of GDP per capita coming in the next generation. This country has a wonderful future, but as the questioner pointed out, that can all be nullified by either madmen or rogue states or religious fanatics or sociopaths or whatever it may be, who wish to have access to weapons of mass destruction and to nuclear, which is I used to think was the primary one. You can now add biological and chemical and cyber, and there will be an increasing number. There already are a huge number of people that would wish harm, and particularly on the United States, although on others as well. And those people aren't going to go away, and they're going to look for more ingenious ways of utilizing the raw materials that they have or might get access to, and better delivery systems. And we need an extremely vigilant security operation in the United States, and we will have threats. I do a little bit about those things in a few ways, but that's something we live with. But we also live in a country that is going to do extraordinarily well, and if we successfully ward off those threats, or at least minimize their impact on us, I still maintain that the luckiest person ever born in history on a probabilistic basis is the baby being born in the United States today. Charlie?
Well, of course, we were a favored place, and we've had a favored outcome, and we've been lucky too. I think I probably lived in the most ideal era that any man in human history could have been born into. I think you too. You have too, Warren.
Right.
But I don't think we should get too smug. China has come up a lot faster than any other big nation ever came up. And
But that's good for us.
well, I think I can hardly think of anything more important than future close collaboration between the United States and China. And you're talking about the two most important nations in the world going forward. And I think it is very important that we like and trust one another and have very good relations and work together to avoid bad consequences that come from other people's mistakes and misbehavior. So I think both China and the United States would be crazy not to collaborate and increase trust. I don't think there's anything more important that we can do for our respective safety and for the general benefit of the world.
If you had your choice, would you rather be being born now with all the qualities you've got, or when you were born?
Well, I must say it's very interesting now, but it was all. I think that's too tough a question. I don't like these very theoretical questions. I'd rather think about something where I might gain some advantage or help somebody else to gain an advantage.
Okay, then we'll move on to Jonathan.